The sun was bright in the blue sky as the royal car pulled up to the large garden. Today was a big day for the three royal children. Prince George, Princess Charlotte, and Prince Louis were going to meet the public at a special children's event. George, the oldest at 11, sat up straight in his seat. He fixed his blue tie and brushed his sandy hair to the side. As the future king, he knew he had to be on his best behavior. His father, the Prince of Wales, had told him how proud he was of George for taking his royal duties so seriously. Next to him sat 9-year-old Charlotte. She wore a pretty red dress with white socks and black shoes. Charlotte was known for her bright smile and kind heart. She was looking out the window, waving at the people who had come to see them. Charlotte loved these events where she could meet other children. Little Louis, just 7 years old, could not sit still. He bounced up and down in his seat, his eyes wide with excitement. "Are we there yet?" he asked for the 5th time. Louis was known for his funny faces and lively spirit. The public loved how real and playful he was. Their mother, the Princess of Wales, gave Louis a gentle look. "Remember what we talked about, Louis. Best behavior today, but you can still have fun." The car stopped, and royal helpers opened the doors. The crowd cheered loudly as the three children stepped out. Hundreds of people had been waiting for hours to see them. Some held British flags, while others had signs with kind words for the royal family. George walked out first, waving in the proper royal way he had practiced many times. Charlotte followed, smiling her biggest smile and waving with both hands. Louis jumped out last, gave a big wave, and then did a little bow that made everyone laugh. The garden was filled with children from different charities. Some were sick and getting better. Others came from poor homes. All of them were excited to meet the royal children. "Welcome to the Royal Spring Garden Party," said a man with a loud voice. "Today we are happy to have Prince George, Princess Charlotte, and Prince Louis join us to plant trees and open our new play area for all children." The first thing on the schedule was tree planting. Each royal child would plant a tree to help the environment. George chose a strong oak tree, just like the ones that had grown for hundreds of years on royal lands. "This tree will grow tall and strong," said the garden worker, helping George dig the hole. "Just like you will grow to be a strong king one day." George nodded seriously. He put the small tree in the hole and carefully added soil around it. He had watched his grandfather, King Charles, plant many trees and was happy to follow in his footsteps. Charlotte was next with her cherry tree. "When this blooms, it will have beautiful pink flowers," the worker told her. "I love pink," Charlotte said softly. She patted the soil gently around her tree, making sure it was just right. When it was Louis's turn, everyone watched closely. Louis was known for doing surprising things. He picked a willow tree with long, flowing branches. "This tree likes water," said the worker. "It will need lots of care." Louis nodded and began digging with great energy, sending some dirt flying. "Oops," he said when a bit landed on Charlotte's shoe. His sister gave him a stern look that reminded everyone of their great-grandmother, the late Queen. The crowd laughed and took pictures. Even when things didn't go perfectly, the royal children showed how normal they could be. After the planting, they would move on to meet other children and play games. But for now, they stood proudly by their trees, three young royals doing their part for the planet. The royal photographer captured the perfect shot. George standing tall, Charlotte smiling brightly, and Louis with a smudge of dirt on his cheek. It was a picture that would warm hearts across the nation. After planting their trees, the three royal children moved to the next part of the day. They were going to meet other children their own age. These children came from special charities that helped kids who were sick or needed extra help. George walked with careful steps. He held his head high like his father had taught him. Today he wore a blue blazer that matched his eyes. Many people said he looked more like his father every day. As the oldest child, George knew he would be king one day. This was a big job, and he was learning how to do it right. "Prince George, would you like to meet some of the children from St. Mary's Hospital?" asked a helper in a black suit. George nodded and walked over to a group of children sitting at a table. Some of these children had been very sick. They had spent a long time in the hospital, but today they were happy to be outside at the palace. "Hello," said George in a clear voice. "Thank you for coming today." He shook hands with each child, looking them in the eye just as he had been taught. When one small boy dropped his paper crown, George quickly bent down to pick it up. "Here you go," he said with a kind smile. The boy looked surprised that a prince would help him. Meanwhile, Charlotte was busy at another table. She loved talking to people and making new friends. Her brown hair was tied back with a red ribbon that matched her dress. Charlotte sat down next to a girl in a wheelchair who looked shy. "I like your bracelet," Charlotte said to the girl. "Did you make it yourself?" The girl nodded and held out her wrist to show Charlotte the colorful beads. "I made it in the hospital when I was getting better." Charlotte smiled. "It's beautiful. I'm learning to make bracelets too, but mine don't look as pretty as yours." Soon, Charlotte and the girl were laughing together. Charlotte had a way of making people feel special. She asked questions and really listened to the answers. Her mother watched from a distance, proud of her daughter's kind heart. Louis, always full of energy, could not sit still for long. He had already met the children at his table and was now looking for something more exciting to do. He spotted a palace guard standing very still by the garden gate. "Do you have to stand still all day?" Louis asked the guard, who tried not to smile at the young prince. "Can I try on your big furry hat?" The guard could not break the rules, even for a prince. He kept looking straight ahead, but his eyes crinkled at the corners, showing he was amused by Louis. A royal helper quickly came to guide Louis back to where he should be. "Prince Louis, we have some games planned for you and the other children," she said. Louis ran to a large open space on the lawn where helpers had set up games. There was a sack race, a ring toss, and a big parachute that all the children could hold and wave up and down. Louis jumped right into the fun, forgetting for a moment that he was a prince at an official event. Soon, all 3 royal children were playing games with their guests. George was careful and followed all the rules. Charlotte made sure everyone got a turn, even the children who were shy. And Louis played with so much joy that all the children around him had big smiles. The photographers took many pictures. These were not the stiff, formal photos that royal families used to take. These showed real children having real fun. The people watching loved to see the royal children just being themselves. "Look at how they play with others," one lady said to her friend. "The queen would be so proud of them." As the games ended, it was time for a special surprise. The royal children would get to open a new playground built right in the palace garden. This playground was special because all children could use it, even those who could not walk or see well. The 3 siblings lined up by a big red ribbon, ready for the next big moment of their special day. The time had come for the big moment of the day. Prince George, Princess Charlotte, and Prince Louis stood in front of a large red ribbon. Behind the ribbon was a brand new playground. This was not just any playground. It was made so that all children could play on it, even those who could not walk or see well. "Children, are you ready to open the royal garden playground?" asked a woman in a smart blue suit. She handed a large pair of gold scissors to George. George looked at the scissors and then at his brother and sister. "We should all cut it together," he said. This was not in the plan, but it showed that George was learning to be a good leader who shares. The woman smiled and agreed. She helped all 3 children hold the scissors. The crowd counted down. 3, 2, 1, cut. With a big snip, the ribbon fell to the ground. Everyone clapped and cheered. The playground was now open. "Can we play on it now?" Louis asked, jumping up and down. He could see swings, slides, and a big climbing frame. Their mother nodded. "Yes, but remember to play nicely with everyone." The 3 royal children ran to explore the playground. Louis went straight to the tallest slide. He climbed up the ladder and waved from the top. "Look at me," he called to his mother. Then he zoomed down with a big smile on his face. Charlotte walked over to a special swing made for children in wheelchairs. She helped the girl she had met earlier get into the swing. "Do you want me to push you?" Charlotte asked. The girl nodded, and soon she was swinging high, her face full of joy. George found a sand pit where children were building castles. He knelt down, careful not to get his nice clothes too dirty. Soon he was helping to build the biggest sand castle in the pit. "If we make the walls thicker at the bottom, the castle will stand up better," he told the other children. George loved learning about old buildings and castles. He knew he would live in many castles when he grew up. As the children played, their parents watched proudly. The Prince and Princess of Wales saw how well their children mixed with others. They did not act better than anyone just because they were royal. After some time playing, a small problem happened. Louis climbed up the tall climbing frame, but then got stuck at the top. He was not sure how to come back down. "I'm stuck," he called, his voice a little worried. Charlotte saw her little brother and stopped pushing the swing. "I'll help you, Louis," she said. She climbed up to show him where to put his feet. George saw too and came over. "Louis, look down here," he called. "Put your right foot there and hold that bar with your hand." Together, the older siblings helped Louis climb down safely. When he reached the ground, Louis gave both his brother and sister a big hug. A photographer caught this sweet moment. It would be in all the papers the next day. People loved to see the royal children acting like real brothers and sisters who help each other. Next on the schedule was tea time. Long tables were set up with small sandwiches, cakes, and juice. The royal children sat with their new friends. They talked and laughed while they ate. Louis got jam on his cheek. Charlotte noticed and gently wiped it off with her napkin. George made sure the children sitting near him all had enough to eat. A small band began to play happy music. Some children started to dance on the grass. Charlotte loved to dance. She got up and began to show some of her ballet moves to the other girls. Not wanting to be left out, Louis jumped up too. He did not know any real dance steps, so he made up his own funny moves. This made everyone laugh, including his parents. Even George, who was usually more serious, tapped his foot to the music. When a small girl asked him to dance, he blushed but stood up and did a careful, proper dance with her. As the sun began to go lower in the sky, the wonderful day was coming to an end. But there was still one more special thing that would happen before the royal children said goodbye to their new friends. The sun was starting to set, making the sky turn pretty shades of pink and orange. The royal children and their guests had enjoyed a wonderful day of play. But there was still one more special event to come. A helper rang a small bell to get everyone's attention. "Boys and girls, please gather around the main stage," called the helper. "The royal children have a surprise for you all." All the children sat on the soft grass in front of a small stage. George, Charlotte, and Louis went behind a curtain with some helpers. They had been practicing something secret for weeks, and now it was time to show everyone. The head of the children's charity stepped onto the stage. "Today has been a wonderful day," she said. "And now, Prince George, Princess Charlotte, and Prince Louis would like to thank you all with a special presentation." The curtain opened. On the stage stood the three royal children. George held some cards in his hands. Charlotte and Louis stood on either side of him. George stepped forward. He looked a bit nervous, but he stood tall. "Hello, everyone," he began in a clear voice. "My brother, sister, and I want to thank you for coming today." He looked down at his cards and continued, "Many of you have been very brave in hospitals. Others have helped people in your families who are sick. We think you are all heroes." The crowd clapped. George was doing well with his speech. His parents smiled proudly from the side of the stage. Now it was Charlotte's turn. She stepped forward with a bright smile. "We have learned that being royal means helping others," she said. She did not need cards to remember her lines. "Our great-grandmother, Queen Elizabeth, always said that true happiness comes from giving to others." Charlotte spoke with such feeling that some of the grown-ups in the crowd had tears in their eyes. She was a natural at public speaking, just like her late grandmother, Princess Diana. Then Louis bounced forward for his part. "We made presents for all of you," he said with great excitement. He almost shouted his line, making everyone laugh. On cue, helpers came from behind the stage carrying baskets full of small gift bags. Each bag had the royal coat of arms on it. Inside were special medals made just for this day, some sweets, and a small plant for each child to grow at home. The royal children stepped down from the stage to help give out the presents. George made sure to shake hands with each person. Charlotte gave everyone a kind word. Louis added his own touch by doing a little bow each time he handed out a bag. One little boy who used a walker to help him walk was at the back of the crowd. He could not come forward easily to get his gift. George noticed him and whispered something to Charlotte and Louis. Then all three royal children walked together to the boy. "We wanted to bring your gift to you," George said, handing him the special bag. "And we want to thank you for coming today," added Charlotte with a warm smile. "I like your cool walker," said Louis, making the boy grin. A photographer caught this moment. It showed exactly what the royal family wanted people to see: young royals who cared about others and treated everyone with kindness. As the gift-giving finished, the garden lights came on, twinkling like stars. It was almost time to say goodbye. The royal children returned to the stage for a final wave. "Thank you all for a wonderful day," George said into the microphone. "We hope you had as much fun as we did," added Charlotte. Louis leaned into the microphone and said, "Come back soon." Then he did a funny little dance that made everyone laugh. The crowd gave the children a big round of applause. Even the serious palace guards smiled at the young prince's silliness. As the royal family prepared to leave, something magical happened. Fireflies began to appear in the garden, lighting up like tiny floating lights. The children gasped with wonder. "Look, Louis, fireflies," Charlotte pointed. The three siblings watched with wide eyes as the little insects twinkled in the twilight. This perfect ending to a wonderful day showed that even royal children could find joy in simple things, just like any other child. As the fireflies danced in the evening air, it was time for the royal family to head back to the palace. The day had been full of activities, but there was one more special thing planned. The royal children would get to ride in the famous glass coach that had carried many royals before them. The glass coach was brought to the garden gate. It shone in the evening light, with gold trim and the royal coat of arms on the door. 4 white horses stood ready to pull it. The children's eyes grew wide at the sight. "Is that for us?" Louis asked, his mouth open in surprise. "Yes, darling," his mother answered, "just like in the storybooks." The coach was very old and very special. It had carried their grandmother on her wedding day. It had carried their great-grandmother to many important events. Now it would carry the 3 young royals through the streets so people could see them on their way back to the palace. George, being the oldest, helped Charlotte step up into the coach first. He was learning to be a gentleman at all times. Charlotte sat down on the soft seats and smoothed her red dress. George followed and sat next to her. Then Louis climbed in, with a little help from a royal helper. "Remember to wave to the people," their father told them. "They have waited a long time to see you." The coach door closed with a soft click. The driver, dressed in a red and gold uniform, called to the horses. Slowly, the beautiful coach began to move along the path. People lined the streets, cheering and waving flags as the coach passed by. Inside, the royal children waved back. George used the proper royal wave he had practiced, a small movement of the hand from side to side. Charlotte smiled her brightest smile and waved with joy. Louis waved with his whole arm and sometimes with both arms at once. "Look at all the people," Charlotte said. "They are so happy to see us." Louis pressed his face against the glass to see better. "Why are some ladies crying?" he asked, noticing some women wiping tears from their eyes. "Sometimes people cry when they are very happy," George explained to his little brother, or when something reminds them of the past. Many people in the crowd were thinking of how much the children looked like their father when he was young. Some older people remembered their grandmother, Princess Diana, when they looked at Charlotte's kind smile. Time seemed to move in circles for the royal family, with children growing up to look like those who came before them. As the coach turned a corner, something funny happened. A small dog ran into the road, barking at the horses. The horses stopped and shook their heads. The dog ran in circles, thinking it was playing a game. Louis burst out laughing at the silly dog. Charlotte covered her mouth to hide her giggles. Even serious George smiled at the scene. A police officer quickly picked up the little dog and carried it back to its owner. The coach started moving again, but the children were still laughing about the dog. "That was the best part of the day," Louis said, clapping his hands. The coach passed through the big gates of the palace. The day's public events were over. Now the children could relax and be just a family again, away from all the cameras and crowds. When the coach stopped at the palace door, the children's grandmother was waiting for them. She had watched the day's events on television and had come to hear all about their big day. "Grandma," they all called, running to hug her. Even though they were royal children who had just been on display for the world, they were still just children who loved their grandmother. "Tell me everything," she said as they walked inside. "Did you have fun? Were you nervous? Did anything funny happen?" The children all started talking at once, eager to share their experiences. Louis told about the dog and the fireflies. Charlotte talked about the girl in the wheelchair who was now her new friend. George explained how well he had done with his speech. Inside the palace, they could take off their fancy clothes and put on comfortable ones. They could have hot chocolate and cookies while they talked about the day. They could just be normal children again, at least until their next royal duty called. Their parents watched with pride and a bit of relief. The day had gone well. The young royals had shown the perfect mix of proper behavior and natural charm. The public had loved seeing them. Most importantly, the children themselves had enjoyed the experience. The next morning, the sun peeked through the curtains of the palace rooms where the royal children slept. Prince George was the first to wake up. He always woke up early, even on days when he could sleep in. He got out of bed and walked to his window to look outside. The palace gardens were quiet in the morning light. Workers were cleaning up from yesterday's big event. George could see the trees they had planted. One day, those trees would be tall and strong. It made him feel good to think that their trees would grow for many years to come. Soon, Charlotte woke up too. She put on her slippers and went to find her brother. "Good morning, George," she said, coming into his room. "Are you looking at the gardens?" "Yes," he replied. "They're cleaning everything up, but our trees are still there." The two children stood at the window together. They were not just brother and sister, but good friends too. They shared many secrets and helped each other learn their royal duties. Louis, always the last to wake up, finally came running into George's room. His hair was messy, and he was still in his pajamas with little crowns printed on them. "Is breakfast ready?" he asked. Food was always the first thing on Louis's mind in the morning. The three children went downstairs to the family dining room. This was not the grand dining room where state dinners were held. This was a smaller, cozier room where the family ate when they were not entertaining guests. Their parents were already at the table, looking at newspapers. All the papers had pictures of the royal children on the front page. There were photos of them planting trees, playing with the other children, and riding in the glass coach. "Look at this," their father said, showing them one newspaper. "It says you three were the stars of the day." The children looked at the pictures with interest. George studied the photos carefully, checking how straight he had stood and how neat his clothes looked. Charlotte looked for pictures of her new friends from the event. Louis just giggled at seeing himself in the paper. "The people loved seeing you," their mother said. "You made many children very happy yesterday." As they ate breakfast, a palace worker came in with a special delivery. It was a large box full of letters and drawings from children who had been at yesterday's event or had watched it on TV. "All these are for us?" Charlotte asked in surprise. The worker nodded. "They started arriving this morning. Many children wanted to thank you." The royal children opened some of the letters right away. There were colorful drawings of the three of them. There were thank you notes written in children's handwriting. Some children had even sent small gifts like friendship bracelets or paper crowns. Louis found a drawing of himself sliding down the big slide. "Look, this boy drew me going zoom," he said with delight. Charlotte found a letter from the girl in the wheelchair. "She says I'm her new best friend," she told her mother with a smile. George found a letter from a boy who wanted to be king one day too. "He's asking what it's like to know you'll be king," George said quietly. This was something he thought about often. Their father came and sat next to George. "What will you tell him?" he asked gently. George thought for a moment. "I'll tell him it's a big job that takes lots of learning, but that helping people makes it worth it." His father smiled proudly and patted his shoulder. After breakfast, the children had lessons with their tutors. Even though they had been part of a big royal event, they still had to learn their math and reading like all children. But their lessons today were special. Their teachers had planned activities around what they had done yesterday. In science, they learned more about the trees they had planted. In writing, they worked on thank you notes to send to the people who had organized the event. At lunchtime, a surprise visitor arrived at the palace. It was their uncle, who had flown in from America. He hadn't been able to come to the event, but he had watched it online. "There are my favorite royal superstars," he called as he came into the room. The children ran to hug him. He always brought fun and laughter when he visited. He carried a bag full of small gifts from his travels. "I saw you all on the live stream," he told them. "You made us all so proud." The Children's Day was now filled with family time, lessons, and writing thank you notes. But they kept thinking about the special day they had shared and the people they had met. Being royal was sometimes hard work, but days like yesterday showed them why it mattered. After lunch with their uncle, the royal children had some free time. Their parents had a meeting with important visitors, so their nanny took them out to the palace gardens to play. It was a warm day, perfect for being outside. "Can we go see our trees?" Louis asked, pulling on the nanny's hand. He wanted to make sure his willow tree was still there. The nanny smiled. "Of course we can. Let's go check on them." The three children ran ahead down the garden path. The workers had finished cleaning up from yesterday's event. The big stage was gone, and the playground was quiet. But the three small trees the children had planted stood proudly in their special spot. George walked around his oak tree, checking it carefully. "It looks good," he said with a nod. "The soil is still damp." Charlotte touched the thin branches of her cherry tree gently. "When will it have flowers?" she asked the gardener who was working nearby. "Next spring, Princess," the man replied with a bow. "And it will be covered in beautiful pink blossoms." Louis was most excited to see his willow tree. "It's growing already," he shouted, even though the tree looked the same as yesterday. In his mind, it was already a giant tree with long, swinging branches. The gardener chuckled. "Trees take time to grow, young prince, but yours is doing very well." As they were looking at their trees, a palace guard came to find them. "Your Royal Highnesses," he said with a bow, "you have special visitors waiting in the small drawing room." The children looked at each other with surprise. They weren't expecting any visitors today. "Who is it?" Charlotte asked. The guard smiled. "I think it should be a surprise." Curious now, the three children followed the guard and their nanny back to the palace. They walked through the long hallways with paintings of kings and queens from long ago. Their shoes clicked on the marble floors. When they reached the small drawing room, the guard opened the door. Inside were three children the royal children had met yesterday. The girl in the wheelchair, the boy with the walker, and another boy who had given George a handmade card. "Hello again," Charlotte said with delight. She had not expected to see her new friends so soon. Their mother, the Princess of Wales, was also in the room. "I invited some of your new friends for a private play date," she explained. "I thought you might like to spend more time with them." This was a wonderful surprise. Often after royal events, the children didn't get to see the people they met again. But today was different. "Would you like to see my dolls?" Charlotte asked the girl in the wheelchair. She had a special collection of dolls from around the world. "Yes, please," the girl answered with a shy smile. "I have a new computer game about space," George told the boy who had given him the card. "We could play it together if you like." The boy's eyes lit up. "That sounds amazing. I love space." Louis bounced up and down. "And I have toy cars. Lots and lots of cars." The other boy, who used a walker, smiled widely. "Cars are my favorite." Their mother watched happily as the children went off to play. This was her idea: to show her children that being royal wasn't just about public appearances. It was about making real connections with people. For the next 2 hours, the royal children played with their new friends like any normal children would. They showed them their toys and games. They took them on a small tour of parts of the palace. They even had a mini tea party with cakes and juice in the children's playroom. George forgot to be serious and proper as he got excited about his space game. Charlotte shared her most special dolls, ones she usually kept careful track of. Louis didn't mind when his new friend accidentally broke one of his toy cars. For a little while, they weren't royal children with duties and rules. They were just children having fun with friends. Their mother took some photos of them playing together. These weren't photos for newspapers or official royal accounts. These were family photos to keep as happy memories. "This is the best day," Charlotte said, as she helped her friend make a crown out of paper and ribbons. "Even better than yesterday." The other children nodded in agreement. Being invited to play at the palace was the most exciting thing that had ever happened to them. As the afternoon went on, the royal children learned something important: that making friends and being kind was the best part of being royal. As the afternoon went on, it was soon time for the royal children's special friends to go home. They said goodbye at the palace door, promising to write letters and maybe meet again sometime. The 3 visitors left with big smiles and special gifts: small golden pins with the royal coat of arms that the children gave to their new friends. After waving goodbye, George, Charlotte, and Louis went to find their grandfather, King Charles. He had been busy all day with important meetings, but he had asked to see his grandchildren before dinner. They found him in his study, a room with tall bookshelves and a big desk. "There you are, my dears," the king said with a warm smile. He put down his papers and opened his arms for hugs. The children rushed to hug their grandfather. Even though he was the king, to them he was simply Grandpa. He always made time for them, no matter how busy he was with running the country. "Grandpa, did you see us on TV yesterday?" Louis asked, climbing onto the king's lap. "I watched every minute," the king replied. "You all made me very proud." Charlotte sat on the arm of his chair. "We planted trees, just like you taught us," she said. The king loved nature and had taught his grandchildren about taking care of the environment. "Yes, I saw. And you chose wonderful trees," he said, patting her hand. "When you are older, you will be able to show your own children those same trees, all grown tall and strong." George stood nearby, watching his grandfather with admiration. One day after his father, George would sit at this very desk as king. It was a big thought for a young boy. The king noticed George's serious face. "George, come here," he said gently. "I have something special to show you." From his desk drawer, the king took out an old leather book. It was a journal with yellowed pages. "This was my diary when I was just about your age," the king told George. "I wrote about my first royal appearances, just like the one you did yesterday." George took the book carefully. "You were nervous too?" he asked in surprise. The king chuckled. "Terribly nervous. I was worried I would trip or say the wrong thing." This made all 3 children giggle. It was hard to imagine their grandfather, the king, being nervous or making mistakes. "Can we read it?" Charlotte asked, always curious about family stories. "Of course," the king said. "Let me find a good entry." He turned the pages until he found what he was looking for. Then he read to them about a day long ago, when he was a young prince meeting the public for the first time. He had been scared, but had done his duty. One little boy had given him a toy soldier that he kept to this day. The royal children listened with wonder. They loved hearing stories about when their father and grandfather were young like them. "So you see," the king said when he finished reading, "every royal child before you has felt the same things you feel. It's part of our family story." This made the children feel better about their own worries and mistakes. Even kings and queens had been children once. A palace worker came to tell them it was time to get ready for dinner. Tonight was special because they would eat in the formal dining room with their parents, their uncle, and their grandfather. Usually they ate in the nursery with their nanny. "Can we wear our new clothes?" Charlotte asked as they walked upstairs to change. "Yes, but remember your table manners," their nanny reminded them. The children got dressed in their nice clothes. George wore a small suit that matched his father's. Charlotte put on a pretty blue dress. Louis had a small suit too, but his nanny made sure his tie was not too tight. He hated things around his neck. When they came downstairs, the grown-ups were waiting in the grand dining room. The long table was set with golden plates and crystal glasses. Tall candles gave the room a warm glow. "Don't they look wonderful?" their mother said as the children walked in. "Our little stars." The family sat down to dinner together. The children tried hard to remember all their manners. Sit up straight, napkin on lap, use the right fork, don't talk with your mouth full. Louis still struggled a bit, dropping his napkin twice. But nobody minded. They were just happy to be together as a family after such a busy time. As they ate, they talked about the big day, about the friends they had made, and about plans for future royal duties. But most of all, they enjoyed being together, sharing stories, and laughing about funny moments. The royal children were learning that after the public duties were done, family time was the most special time of all. After dinner, the royal family moved to the cozy drawing room for dessert. This was the children's favorite part of the day. Sweet treats were set out on a small table, and hot chocolate was served in special cups. "Before we have dessert," the children's father said, "we have a small surprise for you three." Their mother brought out a large box tied with a ribbon. "This is to say well done for yesterday," she said, placing it on the table. The three children looked at the box with wide eyes. Louis was ready to tear into it right away, but George and Charlotte held back, waiting to be told they could open it. "Go ahead," their grandfather, the king, said with a smile. "Open it together." The children carefully untied the ribbon and lifted the lid. Inside was a photo album. But it wasn't just any album. On the cover were the words "Our Royal Day" in gold letters. Charlotte lifted it out carefully. When they opened it, they found page after page of beautiful photos from yesterday's event. There were official photos taken by the royal photographer, but also special candid shots that no one else would see. "Look, that's when Louis got stuck on the climbing frame," George said, pointing to one picture. "And there's Charlotte helping the girl on the swing," their uncle added. The family looked through the album together, laughing at funny moments and remembering special parts of the day. There was a lovely photo of all three children planting their trees, another of them cutting the ribbon for the playground, and one of them waving from the glass coach. But the most special picture was at the very end. It showed the three children helping the boy with the walker. In the photo, they weren't being royal, they were just being kind. "This is my favorite," their mother said, touching the photo gently. "This is what being royal truly means." The king nodded in agreement. "Duty is important," he said, "but kindness is what people remember most." After enjoying their dessert and looking through the whole album, it was time for the children to go to bed. It had been a very full 2 days, and even Louis was looking tired. They said goodnight to their grandfather and uncle with big hugs. Then their parents took them upstairs to their bedrooms. As Charlotte was getting into bed, she asked, "Mummy, will people remember what we did yesterday?" Her mother sat on the edge of the bed. "Yes, darling, they will. But not just because you are royal children who behaved well. They will remember how you made them feel welcomed and important." In George's room, he was thinking about everything he had learned. As his father tucked him in, he said, "Dad, I think I understand better now what it means to be royal." His father sat down. "What does it mean to you, George?" George thought carefully before answering. "It means helping people and showing them that we care about them. It's not just about wearing nice clothes and living in a palace." His father smiled proudly. "That's exactly right. Always remember that." Little Louis was already half asleep when his parents came to say goodnight, but he opened his eyes to ask one last question. "Can we do it again tomorrow?" he asked with a yawn. His parents laughed. "Not tomorrow," his father said, "but there will be many more special days like this in your life." As the children fell asleep, the palace grew quiet. Outside, people were still talking about the wonderful royal appearance. Newspapers were printing special editions with photos of the three young royals. Television shows were discussing how well they had done. But inside the palace walls, George, Charlotte, and Louis slept peacefully, dreaming of trees growing tall, new friends, and golden coaches. They had shown the world that they were growing into their royal roles with grace and kindness. In the morning, they would wake up to begin another day as royal children. There would be lessons to learn, duties to practice, and rules to follow. But they would also have time to play, to laugh, and to just be children. And in gardens across the country, children who had met the royal trio were telling their friends and families about their special day. They didn't talk about the princes and princess being perfect or grand. Instead, they talked about how George had helped them build a sandcastle, how Charlotte had pushed them on the swing, and how Louis had made them laugh with his funny faces. This was the true success of the royal children's appearance, not that they had been perfect, but that they had been real. And in that way, they had honored the best traditions of their family while making their own special mark on the world.